Good evening to you, my petrifying little ghouls and goblins. We all love a good horror game around top 5 scary, but these horror games, you might want to think twice before playing. They might curse you. This is top 5 games that will curse you if you play them. Have you played any of these games before? Let me know down in the comments below if you survived. Let's dive right on in. Number 5, Berzerk. Berzerk, and no, sadly, not based on the awesome anime series, was an arcade cabinet produced in the 1980s. A pretty simple little maze shooty game where you play as a stickman zapping robots, fighting across the game's many levels. It was the 80s, this was like the moon landing back then. The game was a smash hit, people loved it, people loved playing it, there was even a home board game version you could get. The cabinets did very well. Berzerk also features maybe the best villain in video game history, Evil Otto, who's a little smiley face that bounces around the room and gets ya. The only way you'd know he's threatening is because of his title, Evil Otto, and if he touches you the game's over, which is sad. I would personally like to know Evil Otto a little better and learn what makes him so evil. Well, if legend has it, if the player reaches a certain score, the LCD screen of the cabinet won't be enough to protect you from Evil Otto's malice, and he'll hunt you in real life. Doesn't seem so unassuming now, does he? 2 different people reportedly lost their lives after playing Berzerk. The first, Jeff Daly, passed from a heart attack after getting his highest score yet in the game. The second, Peter Bukowski, experienced the same mysterious thing, heart attack after getting the high score. Both people were perfectly healthy before, showing no signs of risks, and media started to speculate that the stress of the game had caused this. Evil Otto apparently really gets to people. Autopsy reports showed that there was scarring on their hearts, suggesting that perhaps the game truly was too stressful for the players' hearts to handle. Perhaps it's best that the cabinets have been lost to time. Evil Otto sealed away, smiling for eternity in his digital prison. Hey, liking what we do? I like what we do. If you've been having a good time, why not consider throwing a little subscribe our way for daily horror content. Number 4, Bubbaruka. Bubbaruka is the newest entry on this list, coming to us from 2021. It's an indie horror game based off of kids' toys, mostly Tamagotchi. And the game is pretty meta. You play a fictionalized version of yourself, that's you, the player, who's received an email from their friend John telling them that they found a really interesting banned game that was sold on a laptop on eBay. And John emails you the file so that you can try the game too. A good friend. Now the in-universe game you're playing, Bubbaruka, is a cute little pet simulator where you get to look after some adorable little Pokemon-y bubble creatures, the Bubbaruka. At first, it would seem this is what the whole game is about, just taking care of your little guys, feeding them, cleaning up after them, all that. But it wouldn't be on this list if that was the case, now would it? Now there are creatures in the game that will hunt your little bubbles and you need to protect them from it. But as you keep playing, the meta-narrative about what happened to the original studio that developed Bubbaruka unfolds slowly as you piece together what had happened to them and realize why this game had been banned inside the game's universe. It goes well above any content or business decisions, and you start to become aware that there's some entity inside the game that you're playing. This thing, whatever it is, seems to have its sights set on you, the player, next. It's an interesting idea, definitely, having to beat a game not just to see it through to the end, but to make sure you're stopping an ancient malevolent evil trapped inside the Steam app/common folder and looking to wreak havoc on your computer and you. I don't want to give too much away about Bubbaruka. It's pretty short, and it's pretty cheap. If you're into inventive little horror games and you've got approximately $3 lying around somewhere, it's on Steam and it's worth checking out. The meta stuff is cool, and can you name me a second horror game based on Tamagotchis? I don't think so. Number 3, Polybius. I've talked about Polybius on this channel before, and I probably will talk about Polybius on this channel again because it is just too crunchy an urban legend for me to resist talking about it. It's genuinely one of my favorite little creepy stories on the internet. There's a half-decent chance Polybius and the legends around it probably inspired 1 or 2 entries on this list. The stories go that Polybius was an arcade cabinet released in 1981, produced by an elusive, mysterious studio named Sinneschlossen, a butchered German translation of the words to lose sense. Polybius wasn't like other arcade games and seemingly wanted something more out of you than just your parents' allowance. The game was similar to Asteroids, where the player plays a geometric shape blasting off against other geometric shapes. Like I said, again, it was the 80s. They didn't know about Apex Legends or Overwatch yet. This was as cool as video games could be. The simple game, though, was apparently so addictive that it would drive people to lunacy. Players were outright addicted to it, unable to think about anything other than Polybius after they played the game, reporting obsessive compulsive thoughts, dreams about the game, constant headaches, unexplained pains, and even going so far as people in arcades would break out into fights over who got to play next. Now where it gets very strange is allegedly the arcade in Portland, Oregon, where Polybius was first tested, would get regular visits from shady men in black suits who would watch the game being played, observe the crowd, take notes, and then leave without speaking to anyone. Now, they wouldn't even collect the quarters. Now, over the years, there have been many attempts to try and track down Polybius and uncover whether or not it is just a decade-spanning urban legend, if it's a government conspiracy to train people or brainwash folks, or if it ever even truly existed. It's difficult because as the legend is so popular and widespread, there's a good amount of fan content out there of people who want to contribute their own way, like people making homemade cabinets or video footage of replications of what the gameplay looks like. Regardless, there's just as many stories online of people who insist they were at that arcade in Portland, Oregon, and have played that fable game and have never been able to stop thinking about it since. Number 2, I'm Scared. Wow, do I love that title. I'm Scared, a Pixelated Nightmare, is an indie horror game developed and released in 2016 by indie dev Ivan Zanotti. The game begins with a warning from Ivan himself, apologizing for what the game is going to do to you. The game warns you that it's going to manipulate your computer while you play, and I think way more games should do this, by the way. Start off by making a list of dangerous consequences for playing. Imagine if you booted up League and it told you that your friends were going to stop texting you back. Anyway, take a listen to this excerpt from the opener. This game will try to deceive you as many times as it can. In case something goes wrong, feel free to check the folder in order to report any error. I'm extremely sorry. I didn't really want to do that. Forgive me. Now, as you can probably guess from that foreboding intro crawl, the game is a surrealist experience, being closer to a pixelated nightmare more than a traditional video game. As you play the game, you realize the antagonist of the game isn't just a spooky ghost, but rather you're going toe to toe with one of the game's many glitches that has developed sentience and a personality of its own, and is very intent on tricking you and messing with you as much as possible. The terrifying little entity, dubbed White Face by fans of the game, seems to be having the absolute time of its life scaring you. You, the player, not the protagonist of the game. Like the warning said, I'm Scared will alter files on your computer, write things in your notepad, and all sorts of scary horror stuff to make you feel like you've downloaded something onto the hard drive you can't take back. All in all, it's actually a really cool gimmick and an incredibly inventive little horror game that's not leaving this list without a huge recommendation. I go gaga for any breaking the fourth wall stuff in a video game, like Undertale and all its save file stuff, and putting yourself up against a malevolent entity where the screen isn't enough to protect you. Very cool. It costs less than a Big Mac on Steam if you feel brave enough to give it a try, and invite whatever horrors are inside it onto your computer. Number 1, Pokemon Red and Blue. Now it's time for one of my favorite Pokemon urban legends, right after Mew hiding under the truck and pressing down B on a Pokemon being caught. The original Pokemon is probably one of the most well-loved video games of all time, iconic in just about every single aspect. You remember that first time starting in humble Pallet Town and working your way through the gyms of Viridian City, Vermilion City, all the way to Lavender Town. Yeah, Lavender Town. And maybe it was just because I was literally a child, but Lavender Town used to scare me to tears, made my hair stand on end. The whole game is so cute and friendly and wholesome, and then you take a quick stop at a town where they're obsessed with the dead, and for the first time your little brain entertains the possibility that maybe your Pokemon have mortality and could die. And the whole town is just unsettling too. You remember the music? It was eerie lo-fi beats that made it seem like something was different, like something was wrong. Well, there's a very famous urban legend called Lavender Town Syndrome, and I'll admit this stuff actually scared me so bad as a kid I never wanted to play it again. The story goes that the music for Lavender Town contains a high-pitched tone unnoticeable to anyone but younger ears that will drive you to madness. All manner of urban legend was built around this. Stories of kids complaining of constant headaches, pain, anxiety, nightmares, and discomfort listening to the Lavender Town music. Some variations of the tale suggest that the tone only exists in Pokemon Red, with dramatic versions including some backstory saying director Satoshi Tajiri has an aversion to the color red out of a dislike of violence. Now, is Lavender Syndrome real? I feel like I have a personal duty, because of how much this particular story genuinely scared me as a kid, just to come out and say no, it doesn't. Now, admittedly, very interestingly, the themes for Lavender Town are ever so mildly different compared to the Japanese and widespread North American release, with the North American version sounding ever so slightly less harsh. Now, there could be any number of reasons for this outside of a curse, but you have to admit it is some good wood for the fire if you're writing a story about scary music. Now, most likely is that Lavender Town was already a very unsettling part of a cheery childhood memory for a lot of us, and that music genuinely is creepy regardless of context. I mean, listen to it right now and you will feel a little uneasy. You almost don't even need any urban legends surrounding Lavender Town to assume it's cursed in some way. That's all for this video, my little ghouls and goblins. Thanks so much for watching. Creep it real, and I'll see you in the next one.